Well, our final conversation today still rests in Russia and Ukraine. They are major producers of a range of commodities: oil, natural gas, grains, metals, and of course the prices are very volatile at this time. We have Matt Kindiger to tell us how this is affecting Africa, which we know is very commodity dependent. Hello, Matt. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Good to have you, Matt. So which African countries are most exposed to the effects of this conflict?
So it's worth noting that the effects of the conflict in Ukraine will depend on many factors. So how long it lasts, how destructive it is in Ukraine, whether Russia takes retaliatory measures against the EU and NATO states. But overall, most countries in Africa will be affected. But the countries that are the most vulnerable are those with quite close trade, economic ties with Russia. And those are, well, specifically South Africa, to a lesser extent, Cote d'Ivoire, as well as Zimbabwe, partly because it has quite a close political relationship with Russia. The countries that are most reliant on European tourism and exports, such as Kenya, South Africa, but also to an extent West Africa, such as Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, are also vulnerable. And this is more of a sort of indirect effect, because we do expect there to be a slowdown in European economic growth as a result of this conflict. And as a direct result, we do expect consumers in Europe to be more cautious over the next year or so. So certainly we have a broad range of impacts, some direct, some indirect, and some quite short term.
Yeah, I know that you mentioned tourism there, but is that the only industry that will be most affected by this?
So certainly not. Tourism will be affected. We have seen very happily a recovery in tourism in many African markets, but this is probably going to go into reverse to an extent. Other industries that will be badly affected by this include agriculture. This is because Russia is one of the largest producers of potash, which is one of the key ingredients for fertilizer. So we're expecting to see the input costs for the agriculture industry to increase significantly across the world, including in Africa. And this is obviously a very important industry for the continent. Manufacturing also faces quite significant increases in the costs because of higher energy prices as a result of the conflict. But it's also worth noting that there are a couple of industries that will benefit in the short term from this conflict. This includes extractive industries. So we have seen a very sharp increase in oil prices over the last few days. So this will benefit the oil industry in Nigeria, for example, Angola and Ghana, and also countries that produce metals that Russia also produces. So I'm thinking about palladium and platinum produced both in South Africa, but also to an extent gold, because it's seen as a safe haven asset. So although there are significant negative economic ramifications, there are a couple of industries that may actually see a bit of an upside from this conflict in Africa.
All right, Matt, do you see this? I mean, well, they're having talks now. Hopefully something fruitful comes out of that. Do you see this effect being nipped in the bud?
The conflict, in terms of talks, having a positive result, it's way too early to tell. I think the Ukrainian side probably wants a complete removal of Russian troops. The Russians probably want something else. So at the moment, it's far too early to tell whether this will come to an end. And we're probably going to see an escalation of, or you could say a deterioration of relations further between Russia and the West, NATO and the European Union. So it's probably going to last a little bit longer.
Wow, unfortunately so. Well, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.